Yeah, I think it makes sense. You know, hopefully Bob will be at town meeting and we can have a three-way division there. Good. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Shelburne Select Board meeting for Wednesday, the 19th of April at 5:30 p.m. And thank you, Finance Committee, for joining us. We will leap right into the warrant. Terry, do you want to take us forward?
Sure. I didn't know if you wanted to call the meeting to order. I might have missed that, but
Oh, I thought I did, but
okay.
we're calling the meeting to order. And, I may not have said those words, so thank you for the reminder.
I wanted to start with the warrant articles because those have the biggest dollar amounts. So the Article 1 and 2, actually through 6, are boilerplate. If the Finance Committee or the board doesn't have any questions, we could jump into the omnibus.
Yes, I'm fine with that. Any concerns about that, Finance Committee?
That's
Are we on mute still?
okay. Yeah, sorry, we couldn't hear that first part, Terry.
It said Articles 1 through 6 are boilerplate, and if unless anyone has any questions, we'll jump right into the omnibus article.
That sounds good.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Margaret, any concern there?
No, that's fine. And Article 7 just is the omnibus beginning, so.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. So what I'd like you all to do is go down each category in general government, and if you have any questions or concerns, please let me know.
Why don't folks sing out if they have a line item they want to discuss? I have one, Terry, on the Shelburne Falls beautification account. Anybody have anything above that? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
No.
Okay. I'm just curious, Terry, if that raise from 1,000 to 2,000, is that directed at the various parcels of land we agreed to manage at the last town meeting?
Yeah.
In part, typically we appropriate $1,000, and that takes care of the plantings of the garden at the intersection of Route 2 and Mechanic Street, and in front of the town hall, that small garden when it's not under construction. But now that we're maintaining the properties down by the glacial potholes and those gardens, the gardener that's currently taking care of that asked for $900 for her services and materials, topsoil, mulch, and new plantings.
Okay. And we presumably we have other somewhere in the other line items is the general maintenance that George provides, is that right?
That's under buildings and grounds, and that's the 400 series under the highway.
Okay.
And it covers everything from winter to summer mowing, etc.
Yeah. And the big jump in the computer account is for?
That's the new cyber security enhancements that our insurance company is requiring us to have in order to maintain cyber liability insurance.
Okay. Any other questions about general government?
No.
All right, Margaret?
No, I have a couple things, just details, but they're not worth taking time on now. We can check them on Monday.
Okay. Public safety, anything you want to call out?
Hey, just Terry, just like in terms of how it's presented, the 487 versus the 268 for 210-5110, is that are we not showing the offset that we would get from? Isn't part of this going to be shared with Buckland, if I recall from the police budget discussion?
Oh,
This- The dollar amount in both the police department's salary and expense line item represents the combined departments.
The gross amount, right, but we,
Yes,
so if, right, but there's still, there's a significant allocation that's gonna go to Buckland if this passes, correct? So the actual budget that the taxpayers would incur would not be the full 47, would it?
no, that's correct. You'll notice on the budget overview page,
Oh, it's
under
okay.
budgeted revenue, there's $257,407 that we anticipate that Buckland will pay us if the agreement passes. And then the town will go back at a special town meeting in the fall and reduce that budgetary line item by that amount.
Okay, that makes sense, thanks.
So just a curiosity there, Terry, if we're gonna get 257 something from Buckland, assuming this agreement goes through on both towns, that looks to me on the face of it like it's not a 51-49 split. Am I wrong about that?
I think what's not showing is monies from the grant that we have that offsets a portion of this. But it is based on a 51-49% split.
Oh, okay, okay. And hopefully the grant is also splitting that way too, is that correct?
Yes, the grant was written on behalf of both towns, so it would be used to offset the total for both.
Right. Okay. Other questions about public safety?
I just wanted to mention that streetlights, we're going to be approximately $3,000 short in this fiscal year. So I have added that to the adjusted column for FY23 and then increased that dollar amount by 5% in the event the LED conversion doesn't happen. And I'm not even sure 5% will cover what the costs will be moving forward if we don't go with the LED lights.
And is that line item primarily just electricity cost, or is it kind of a package deal of maintenance and electricity?
Maintenance is all covered by Eversource, so that's just the electricity cost.
That's just electricity, okay.
Yes.
Good to know. Well, if there's no further on the public safety, let's go to education. Comments, concerns, questions?
Go to education, that's what you said?
If there's no further comment on public safety.
Just on the streetlights, this potential conversion to LED, how does that interplay with this budget? Just to remind me, I'm sure you guys.
Well, we were anticipating that if we actually go through with the conversion this year, that Eversource has suggested we might save $5,000 in electricity costs.
So
It's
that's
actually-
factored in here.
Sorry. Did I misstate that?
It'll actually be more of a savings because we're going with the 30-watt bulbs instead of the 51, so it'll be closer. It's over $6,000.
I think it was 6,600 and change, it said, yeah.
So what's
Okay.
gonna happen if we don't go through with the conversion?
Then we would budget this kind of amount to, which is more this reflecting what we're currently paying.
Well, first of all, we are going through with it though, right? We have a contract with Eversource,
We
correct?
don't have a contract with Eversource yet.
We don't have any
No.
agreement with them?
The board voted on 2 occasions to proceed with the conversion, but we don't have a contract. It was an offer that Eversource made to the town, and Shelburne accepted it.
Okay, well, then we kind of have a handshake deal then, really, right?
Kind of. We've gone through a number of iterations of testing and demonstrations of different options, and we're still engaged in that process. The public has, at this late date, as you may have recalled there, joined in the process rather vigorously at our last meeting and will again at our next meeting. So I expect this will continue to evolve.
Sorry, but is the select board going to change the recommendation from the past two votes? Is that the idea?
I think that remains to be seen.
Andrew, this is Debbie Andrew. Could you tell me in brief what the concerns are of the public?
You didn't stick around for the long discussion at last meeting?
I apologize. I was probably in surgery at the time.
Oh, okay. Well, you're excused then. Yeah, we had a probably, I think, 20 or so people come and make public comment at the last meeting, and there was a lot of concern about the level of lighting, the color of the lighting, the glare of the lighting, the pointing of the street lights in the wrong directions. There were many different issues raised. And so we have taken that under advisement. We have, as Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we've asked Eversource to demonstrate the shielded light that they're proposing to install. And I had asked that we do that at the place where there was the greatest level of concern, which is at the corner of Water and Main Street. And to also re-aim some of the light arms that apparently have tilted over the years and are pointing the lights into people's houses. So we've received a lot of concern, and we are hopefully going to have a demonstration of the most recent iteration of the Eversource light offer.
Thank you, Andrew.
So if
And Terry, is there any update on whether that's been installed or will be installed?
I will be notified when the trouble man has made that installation.
Okay. If we can do that before the May newsletter goes out, we can inform people by that means. But we'll see how that develops. Anyway, anything further in the public safety area?
Nope, no.
Yes.
All right, education.
Well, we're always concerned about the Mohawk budget. I mean, that one gone up again. What are your thoughts?
Margaret?
Well, from my perspective, alongside of the cost, I'm still working my way through the redlined thing and trying to understand the changes just to get a better feel for what's going on. I have this.
Well,
same-
Margaret, just to clarify, the red line stuff refers to the warrant articles, which are kind of different than this budget.
Yep, I know, but it all kind of creates the foundation for the situation. And I answered the survey that was sent around, and I still I understand the unfunded mandates from the state and the lack of funding for rural areas and all of those issues. I feel there are still so many things to work on in the school itself and decision-making that we haven't been able. Deb, you might be able to comment a little bit more on this. But I just feel like, and we tried to address it a little bit at last year's town meeting, but it never quite gets addressed in that way. So all I can say is, unless all the towns or some number, I think it's 3 or 4, would have to vote no, I feel that whatever it is now, we need to go ahead with it.
And I would just add, by way of public disclosure, that my wife is a teacher in the Mohawk Trail School District, so I am not going to be voting on the budget. If it is called out as a separate line item, I can vote on the omnibus budget as a whole. But that's where I stand in regards to state ethics law. And just as a general observation, I would say if the overall 4.1% increase seems in line with our overall budget.
But that's not real because you've got a decline in 11.2% in the tech school. So that's not an overall education is only 4.1, but Mohawk is up again.
You know, I think
Yes.
can
The
we,
tech school has declined by a total of about $20,000. So pretty small change there.
According to this.
yes, I mean, I think the finance committee's been through this in quite a lot of detail. And I think as some of you saw, we sent a pretty detailed follow-up list to Bill and to Cheryl. Haven't heard anything back yet. Other than Bill's email today saying he has it. I mean, we have, I think, significant concerns with the budget and aren't in a position to support it.
Okay. So noted. I don't know what further action we can take on that tonight other than questions and concerns. Do you have proposals you want to make tonight about anything we should do, or are we just noting our positions and questions at this point?
Yeah, we just haven't got a response back from them on any of our questions. I don't.
Yeah.
We have 2 pages of questions and we've gotten 0 response. So beyond
Right.
that, beyond the 2 pages of questions, we don't have any further questions.
Right. Well, I share Margaret's concerns about the red line warrant articles, but that's a different issue, and we'll get to that when we get to the warrant articles. If there's nothing further on the budget, we can move to highway. I mean, on the education budget. Margaret, are you ready to move ahead?
Yes.
All right. Any comments, questions, concerns about the highway portion?
No,
No.
no.
And Terry, just as a point of information, I see the grant writing going up there. Does that mean we are continuing with the woman who helped us with the MassWorks grant?
Yes.
And she's working on what?
She's working on another MassWorks grant application that would repair and reconstruct a portion of the old Greenfield Road and a portion of the Coleraine Shelburne Road. It's over $1 million application. We have a public
Fantastic.
hearing coming up on May 8th on both of those projects.
And she feels confident we can dip into that pot again soon after our last $1 million grant?
It's anyone's guess, but you can't get funding if you don't try.
That's
So
true. No, I'm impressed if she's confident that we can go after it that soon after the last one. If there's no other comments on highway, we'll move to health and sanitation.
Actually, Andrew, I'm sorry, this is Debbie again. I have a very quick question.
Go ahead.
I may be mistaken, but I thought the EV charging stations were losing money where initially they were intended as an income producing opportunity. Am I mistaken in my perception?
I'm not sure they were ever proposed as an income generating opportunity, but Terry, you can enlighten us on that. I think you're correct that from what I understand, they are still losing money. But whether we, I think we're still fairly early in the EV transition. But my sense is this is a long-term project that we're engaged in. As you can see, the Biden administration is proposing to get us to about 50% EV cars in the next 10 years, which is fairly ambitious, but it gives you a sense of where the industry is going. And we're kind of at the front end of that timeline still. We're at about 5% EV in terms of the recent sales of new cars. So that I think is some of the explanation for the relatively low level of usage that we're still experiencing. Do you have more on that, Terry?
Yes, I was recently contacted by our Eversource representative who there's a new option to change the manner in which we're being billed from demand to on demand. So I made that transition last month and it's already cut the electric bill in half for both charging stations. So
Wow.
although it's not a huge moneymaker, the impact of having them will be much less.
That's great.
Thank you, Jerry.
You said changing from demand to on demand?
Yes, so we're only going to be charged when they're in use
I
rather
see.
than all the time.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that's great news. Thank you for staying on that. Anything further on highway? Hearing none, we'll go to health and sanitation. Margaret?
Nope, I don't have anything in that.
Finance Committee?
No.
No, we're good.
Okay. Recreation? No comments?
Nope.
Okay, we're on to human services.
I'd like to ask Terry to help me remember the way things went to cause the reduction in the Pratt Memorial, the Pratt building maintenance.
Dan Alden, the new chair of the building committee, suggested that that dollar amount be eliminated because he didn't feel that the town should be contributing to the maintenance when we're already giving a portion to their operating budget.
Okay.
So they have maintenance in their operating budget.
A little bit, yes.
Okay. And do you have insight on how our Council on Aging line item managed to decline, just out of curiosity?
I can look that up. I think it's based on the 5-year average of usage and their new system of accounting for the people who are using it. There was quite a shift. Also, the pandemic reduced the number in terms of use. I can quickly look at that budget.
When you say Council on Aging, is that basically the running of the senior center?
That's correct.
Well, there must have been a fairly significant shift in the user numbers, because generally just inflation causes those numbers to rise. Yeah.
Yeah, I think from the budget presentation, I
They
think,
explained it to us.
yeah, I think the usage is down something pretty dramatically, like 40 or 50%.
But she did say it's starting to
Come back.
come back up.
Yeah, so I
was
think
what-
the utilization is way down and the cost is down a little bit, but the utilization seems to be coming back.
Mhm.
Just
That's
one-
correct.
They're still kind of recovering from the pandemic dynamics. And even though most people feel free to go out much, much more than they used to, maybe almost 100%, there's still some fears, and they still prefer people to wear masks and the vulnerability of senior citizens. And it's just a slower comeback. But with all the things that are happening there, I suspect that that will probably increase in the next year.
Great. Anything else on the budget overall? The omnibus budget. Hearing none, we'll go on to Article 8. Appropriating, this is for the Mohawk Trail capital budget expense.
Yes.
Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, we'll go to Article 9, Osro Miller.
I have one issue with that article.
Okay,
That spills over into the
into the Articles 31 through 3, that to me significantly change the definition of capital to include maintenance. And if that's the case, then this article becomes problematic.
Well, this article is going to be passed independent of the vote on the Article 31 to 33.
I understand that. I understand also that if they change the definition of capital expense, then that significantly changes this article.
Mhm.
Well, we can't, if it changes it by making it go up, we would have to come back to a special town meeting.
Okay? I understand that.
I'm not sure that the language, if passed, would affect this borrowing because it was long-term borrowing. And we've already received our payment plan for the next however many years.
And this is
But-
only that long-term borrowing?
This is a payment based on the long-term borrowing for the most recent capital projects.
There's nothing else in Article 8 other than debt repayment?
Yes, that's
Thank
correct.
you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Then I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. Article 9 is Osro Miller, my favorite article. Anybody want to comment on that?
I just want to get it this year because I've never had it and I want to have it.
All right. Well, I think you should have this one, Margaret. Article 10, Cal Gym user fee account. I'm going to move fairly quickly. Article 11, just call out if I go too fast. Article 11, revolving accounts. Article 12, stabilization accounts. Article 13, equipment stabilization, final payment for the backhoe. Article 14, 7,000 for the for a hitch. Oh, a blower to clear
Blower.
ditches. Article 15, 25,000 for a trailer mounted leaf loader. Article 16, 6,000 for election equipment. Article 17, 5,500 for radios. Article 18, 111,000 from stabilization for solar array. Terry, I'd like to propose here, based on some of the commentary and emails I've had with some members of the Finance Committee, that we consider doing a swap and put the remaining ARPA funding into this line and have the article where we purchase the we've got the we have an article on here, don't we, for a generator?
No, because no, that's forthcoming at the 24th meeting, April 24th. The EMD will be presenting 3 quotes for the generator.
Oh, I see. Well,
And
I
the
would
only-
still like to put the ARPA money into this line item, just to kind of take off the table, if we can, a lot of argument about whether this should be a capital item. We've already purchased solar panels with grant funding in the past. This is really an extension of that project to increase our solar generating capacity for a number of different town purposes. And, you know, I think to me, it's a fairly no-brainer kind of thing, but I can understand if the Finance Committee has a different perspective on it. I think if we just fund this with grant funding, it kind of takes a lot of that issue off the table.
Would that, Andrew, would that need to be voted on by the select board, or doesn't the select board have a say in the use of the ARPA money?
The
Yes.
select board is the body that votes on the use of the ARPA money.
So we would need to do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm proposing that we do.
My only concern with that, Andrew, is the ARPA money, there's not a lot left, but it's great to have when we have projects where the bid comes in higher than anticipated, and it's a simple shift. The park project may need more funds. It's a simple shift.
Yeah,
I guess I'd like to hear the finance committee's concerns on this before.
okay.
board
Well, let's
consider.
have the conversation, but that's just one idea. I appreciate your perspective, Terry. I think you're right in a lot of ways that having, you know, a little cushion money is extremely helpful. I'd prefer to, anyway, finance committee, go to town on this one.
Yeah, look, I think, I mean, a few things. I mean, I think my email was pretty clear, but I think one, I mean, we at least heard about this for the first time
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago or last week. So I don't think we really haven't seen much analysis other than the one overview page that I think you guys were kind enough to send us. And I think if you actually look at the analysis, I'm not sure it's just a bad financial investment for the town, meaning I'm not really sure, it's a low return relative to what the town could be doing with 111,000 less whatever we get back, the 30%. And it just feels like in an environment where the school budget is going to be much higher next year. We heard that last week. Inflation is like much higher. It feels like having a rainy day fund and having an extra $111,000 or $70,000 net is not a bad idea. And I just don't see the benefit to the town, because all we're doing is getting cash, or we're making an investment, we're getting cash back from Eversource, right? We're getting payments from Eversource. So it's a financial transaction, really. And I think it's a poor one, I guess, when you look at the analysis.
Well, I did look at your analysis. Terry, I'll come back to you. I just want to say, Matt, that I didn't find your numbers to be persuasive. That when I looked at the 20-year price yield on a treasury bill, it was 3.8%, not 10%. So, and when I run the numbers on this, it looks to me like about a 5% return. Putting your money, and the alternatives, frankly, is not to buy a treasury bill. No one is proposing to do that. We've never done that. The alternative to this proposal is to continue paying $10,000 a year or whatever the amount is to Eversource. And this is a way we get to reduce our bill to Eversource, just like changing out the LED lights.
But what is the pole barn consuming for energy for
It's not the pole barn that's consuming energy, it's the town of Shelburne. Because of net metering, we get to apply our electric generation across all of our bills at the retail rate.
If I could just give an example.
Go ahead, Terry.
Today, all our Eversource bills came in. We have 13 accounts that I pay. Only 2 have balances because of what we're currently generating from the solar array on the salt shed. And that doesn't include the Arms Library, it doesn't include Cowell Gym. I do see it as a huge benefit. It also doesn't include the street lights, as Andrew said. But when we establish these solar arrays, we tell Eversource where we want the energy credits to go. The highway has not had an electric bill since the solar array went on the salt shed, and many of our other buildings, including the sewer pump station, all 0 balances.
I guess one thing I would want to say on this whole thing is though, so we're asking to take 111 from stabilization. Okay, to put this on a pole barn that we took from, we taxed people for last year, we still don't even have a pole barn. So wouldn't it make sense not to do this until we at least have the pole barn to put it on?
The
Terry,
pole
go
barn
ahead.
the pole barn's out to bid, and one of the conditions of the bid is that the pole barn be erected by the end of June.
Well, we're
So we will have a pole barn at the beginning of the summer we have a May town meeting. If we vote this in, or if the voters decide to approve this, then we have a pole barn to build on, and we go out to bid over the summer to find out what our local installers will bid to erect this solar array.
And I just want to point out too, that the 111,000 is really a guesstimate. We will not know until it's bid what the dollar amount will be, but it should be less than 100,000.
Yeah, I believe, Terry, we got a preliminary estimate of about 70,000. And then there's an additional cost to bring three-phase power from the road to the pole barn. So
I think, yeah, one was close to 93. It just depends on, we have a consultant who is a former Eversource employee also working with us on this project to determine what would be the most suitable size for the pole barn before we put it out to bid and get accurate pricing.
yeah. And I would just add that in addition to the very real and fairly stable prospect of reducing our electric costs by $10,000 a year on average over the next 25 years, which to me is no small change for a 70,000, call it plus or minus investment after the tax credit is applied. There are other town purposes that we are achieving with this investment. One is to continue our progress as a green community, which we signed on to be, 5 years ago or so. The second, which I view as a real prospect over the next 25 years, is to increase our resiliency as a town. And we may look at the installation of battery storage in the future that would enable us to island in the event of power outages and things like that. So I think there's a real possibility for municipalities to have significant local resources to respond to storms and changing climate and emergencies and that sort of thing, that these kinds of installations will represent real capital equipment, not just optional, oh, this sounds like a fun thing to do. You know, this to me is a real investment in our resilience as a community.
Yeah, look, there's all sorts of great projects that I'm sure we can all come up with, and everyone come up with their own pet project to say we should fund this or fund that. I think the reality is, I'm not sure the town's in a fiscal position to be funding these optional projects, because again, it's not a good, you can't make the argument that it's a good financial investment, because you literally will earn, I just ran the numbers, you will literally earn $250,000 more to the town if we just invested in treasuries. And so it's not a good financial investment. And again, I think from our perspective, there's a lot of different things the town could be spending money on, and we all could come up with our own kind of pet projects. It's just a poor financial investment.
Well, I dispute your math on the treasuries. If you look at 75,000 at 3.8%, you don't get those numbers.
With all due respect, Andrew, I would trust my math skills over yours.
Fine.
And it's right here. I mean, it's literally right here. So again, it's just a poor financial investment. The town would literally earn more money if it put it in treasuries. And I guess the other concern is in the Energy Committee minutes from February 16th, there was a reference to expanding, it would help the town expand solar projects under the 7 acres of town land immediately adjacent to the pole barn, which you comment on in those minutes.
Yes, that is a discussion that we've been having of researching possible future solar installation on some part of the 7 acres that the town owns at some point down the road. I don't think anybody is talking about putting 7 acres of solar panels on that land.
Yeah, I can't, I just read the minutes. Yeah, it said expand the solar project onto the 7 acres adjacent to the pole barn.
Right. So just to give you one point of reference, the town of Whately just received a $300,000 grant to do solar PV from its municipal vulnerability preparedness grant application. That's another source of funding we could explore to do further solar, to further reduce our energy costs as a town at no cost to the taxpayer.
Money is so attractive too when you're driving down 91.
Yeah, again, I think it's just a poor financial investment, right? Again, it doesn't.
Getting grant money to install solar is a poor investment?
No, the proposed investment of $111,000.
Again, I return to the use of ARPA money to take that argument off the table.
Right, but I think the ARPA money can be used for, I'm sure, other better things. Right?
I'm sure it could, but if you're concerned about the economics of solar, which I am not, that would be one way to remove that argument.
It is
Terry.
okay to disagree. When the warrant is posted and the moderator asks, the finance committee can say that they don't support this article.
Agreed.
And as for the 7 acres, that's only been discussed at the energy committee level. That has not been discussed at the select board meeting.
That's correct.
Is it likely that that'll come up to the select board for a vote?
It would have to.
But is that something that's in the near future that the select board would vote on expanding the solar to the 7 acres?
We have currently put a proposal forward to Hager's to renew their lease for another 2 years. So that's the most recent usage envisioned for those 7 acres of land. We have not yet heard back from Hager's, I don't think, on whether they've accepted our proposal. Have we heard
Yes.
from them?
Yes, they've accepted the proposal.
Okay, so for the next 2 years, that land is being rented to the Hager farm. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Is there anything further on the solar?
I don't think so.
Article 19, 333,000 to free cash. Oh, in free cash to unrestricted stabilization. Article 20. To change the town's contributory rate for health insurance premiums from 75% for all plans to a tiered menu as follows: 80% rate to HMO plans and 75% for PPO plans. Any questions on that?
No.
Nope.
21 to 185,000 town's share for the maintenance of the Shelburne Falls wastewater treatment facility. 22, go ahead.
Wasn't there a change in Article 21 in the amount?
Yeah, am I reading the right page here? I think it went up to 189, is that right?
It went up to 189.5, but 21, 22, and 23 really only belong to the sewer enterprise. It's not really a part of the town's budget.
Right. Any other questions or comments on that?
Nope.
And Terry, I think I'm reading off the wrong page, because I think that Article 23 was to transfer 37,000, right?
That's correct. Everybody received a corrected copy of page 4 earlier this week. I think Maureen changed the numbers on Friday.
Yeah.
Sent them to me, and I sent the new sheet out on Monday.
Yeah, I have it. I just don't know why I'm reading the wrong one here. All right, so 24 is to the opioid stabilization fund, to create that. Any concerns or questions?
I just didn't know what it was all about. Can you just explain it to me? That's all.
I think this is related to the big federal lawsuit or state lawsuit that may create a windfall of opioid money that will get sprinkled around to all the towns.
Okay.
Terry, do you have more on that?
No, that is correct. It'll be payments over several years. I don't have the dollar amount
No,
handy.
that's fine. I just didn't, it was something I'd never seen before, so I was just curious what it was all about, to be honest.
Yeah, and the funds will be restricted to be used towards drug-related programs.
And can you explain, Terry, how 25 works?
Because we already have funds in our general fund that were generated from this settlement, we now, once the account is established, Article 25 allows us to put those funds from the general fund into this account for that special purpose.
Oh, okay. So this money has actually already been flowing to the towns.
Yes.
Okay. So we're just catching up with that. Article 26. We'll vote to accept the fourth paragraph of MGL to allow the dedication without further appropriation of all or a percentage not less than 25% of particular fees, charges, receipts to a stabilization fund established under MGL for the fiscal year beginning July 1.
This is
Tell us-
also tied to the opioid fund. All three articles are required in
Okay,
order to
I see.
be able to use them.
Okay, great. So this doesn't relate to other fees or other things like that.
No,
Okay. Article 27, to see if the town will adopt the following CPA bylaws. Any questions on the governance of the CPA committee? Hearing none, we'll go to Article 28.
this is the article that I'm questioning, why it's on here.
Sale of town.
I think the planning board thought that it would test the temperature of town meeting before embarking on the votes for the zoning board changes.
So this is a straw vote, is Article 28.
That's how I interpret it.
And
I mean, it's
And
non-financial, so I can ask the planning board or the zoning board for their reasoning. Planning board, I guess it would be.
okay. Why don't we invite them to our meeting on the 24th so that we can have a conversation with them about this?
I can see if John Wheeler can attend.
Okay. Yeah, because it would seem to me if we have articles following Article 29, talks about how to deal with non-conforming lots to use for affordable housing. That I'm not sure we need a preliminary non-binding article. We could just vote on Article 29. But if he has a different strategy, it would be helpful to hear it so we
Okay.
can know what their presentation approach is. Anything further on that, Terry?
No,
Article 30 is changing the sign bylaws. Anything on that?
no.
Article 31 is 31 to 33 are the Mohawk District capital items.
Yeah.
Andrew, I'm sorry to interrupt. Debbie Andrew.
Yeah,
Article 30, I have a question really, which is also will express a bias. I was disappointed when the Shelburne Farm and Garden put up a electronic sign, which I think is the first in town. And is there anything in our bylaws to restrict, other than size, what sorts of flashing lights and whatever can be put up?
Terry, do you know anything about that?
There's a lot in our zoning bylaws with regards to signage, and the building inspector is the one who enforces and determines whether the sign meets the town's zoning bylaws. So I'd have to go back, and I could look up our bylaws for you, or you could go online and look at zoning bylaws. I guess I haven't paid enough attention to the sign to see whether it's flashing or lit up.
Right. This is just my own bias here. I'm just hoping to limit to the one that already exists. So you don't need to look up the zoning bylaws. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Comments on the Mohawk Trail capital cost items, Margaret?
No, I know that's an ongoing thing. And again, I have not looked at it as completely as I would like to be ready for town meeting. Because I think it's related to just the whole picture.
I would say just my own comment on this, Terry, is I don't feel prepared to vote on this without knowing what the impact is. So are we expecting to get that information?
I was told I would have it last week. I've
Yeah,
got
I've
nothing.
been asked for it too.
But at this late stage in the game, how are we gonna get educated on this whole article anyway? Even if we were to receive the financial implications tomorrow, this is a huge article that's kind of coming in at the last minute, and I don't even know how people would be prepared for it. How are we gonna make a recommendation to this?
Can I ask a question about other towns? Did the other towns put it in the district? Did they put it on their warrants? Or do all towns have it on their warrants?
All towns are obligated to put it on their warrant, whether it be an annual town meeting or a special. And just through my network, some people are talking about holding off until a special because it is too much too soon.
Yeah,
I believe the town of Buckland has put it on their warrant. I'm not sure about Ashfield.
I guess the question I would have for the Mohawk folks who are supposed to be giving us the impact information is what would the impact be of not considering or rejecting this article this year, just continuing with the language we have in the district agreement? Because it seems to me that it would make more sense to let it ride for a year and allow a more full discussion of this.
I would have to agree on
I
that.
totally agree with that.
Yeah, well, that
It
makes
makes
sense.
the most sense at this point, this 11th hour.
Yeah, if it's this late and it seems a bit rushed, why not? What's wrong with waiting a year and really getting educated on it?
I'm just trying to understand what the rush is, basically.
Well, I would
The
like to
rest
know too.
worries me.
Yeah.
Andrew, what's the problem for dealing with this? Because it is already on the warrant. How would we step over it, so to speak?
I think we could have a motion to pass over it.
Okay, thank you.
Do that now?
No, I think if it's on the warrant, then we'd have to pass over it at town meeting.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
gotcha. All right.
Terry, do you have more on that?
Well, the board did vote at the last meeting to put it on the warrant, so passing over would be the only recourse, but I will let the school district know that we're actually contemplating that because we have not received any further information on it.
Yeah.
Has the
Terry,
warrant actually been posted, legally posted?
No,
Yes, no?
no, it has not.
Okay, so does not the select board have the option to remove a warrant article until it's posted?
They do. They'd have to vote to rescind these 3 articles.
Thank you. I would like to do that.
Well, I hope we'll get some information from the school committee by our meeting on Monday, and we can see what that is.
Well, there's still, in addition to the financial impact, there are language implications that are not going to be straightened out by Monday, even if we get the financial data.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying we will have complete information. I was just saying it would be nice to get some information.
Mhm.
Andrew,
But right now, I don't have anything to go on really to really understand
Right.
what it is we're voting on.
Well, having nothing to go on is reason enough for me to encourage you to exercise your authority to remove it from the warrant until we do have that information. And if we don't have it in time, then we don't have it. But rather than leave it on and let the clock expire and have to leave it on the warrant and post it that way, I would encourage you all to remove it.
Well, I think if Terry communicates with the school district what our concerns are and that we are considering passing over the items at town meeting, that might bring them to either bring their information to the table for us or attend the meeting on the 24th so that we can better understand their position, and then we can take action accordingly. But, you know, at this point, we're operating with no information. So I don't know. Margaret, your thoughts?
yeah, my thoughts run along similar lines. Even if they were to get us the information in time, I don't know how you can measure it, but I've been looking through this and there's so many questions that I would want the answer to, that there just isn't time to digest it all and ask. And I would think that would be true for the finance committee too. And plus they could project what they think is the impact. I'm just not sure I would totally feel confident accepting their perception of what the impact would be. It's just all too much too late.
You know, I think that's a great point, right? They
That
may,
is
they may
exactly
present to
right.
us what their view of the impact is, but we have no way of confirming that, or we have no idea.
No, there's no time for us to confirm it. They've been living with this for a long,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, it feels like the idea of having it removed makes the most sense, just given we have no real information on the implication. And I mean, it feels like you want a lawyer or someone to go through this. It's a lot of changes.
Yeah, and you would figure that if you're gonna make an, warrant this in depth, that you probably would have done your financial, assessment
Analysis.
before you started doing this, and it should have been something that would be readily available while you're building this.
Mhm.
Andrew, I'll point out too that this should be our final review of the warrant because it has to be posted 7 days in advance of May 2nd, and that would be Monday.
the
And if town meeting starts at 6:30, it has to be posted before 6:30 on Monday evening.
Mhm.
There's no way people in town are gonna get educated enough on this article to make a
That's-
decision.
well, yeah, so given the fact that we are running out of time, maybe it does make the best sense to vote to rescind it
Now,
tonight. And then we don't run into the problems with the warrant.
I don't know why we wouldn't do that. That seems
Yeah.
to be logical.
it just seems like the, most responsible thing to do, since we can't make a good decision on this. We can't leave it up to people
If we don't understand it and don't have time to sort through it, you can't expect somebody at town meeting to sit there and try to do it while everything's going on around them. It's crazy to even expect that.
and if the school can't understand that, that makes me more concerned.
So Terry, my understanding is that Monday, April 24th is 8 days from town meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So I would just say, in the interest of letting Bob have a word on this, that we review it on Monday. And maybe at that point, the school committee can better educate us about their level of urgency and why they chose to bring this to us this year.
It has to be 7 days in advance, so you can't count town meeting day, I don't believe. I can get that clarification from the town clerk. But I
Are you
don't think,
saying
we-
Monday is too late to take a vote on this?
I believe Monday evening is too late to take a vote on this.
Is there any objection to voting to rescind it tonight? Is anyone opposed to doing that?
I'm debating whether or not I would prefer to see it passed over or rescinded.
Rescinded.
What,
I hear what the finance committee is suggesting. Margaret,
if we voted to pass over it, what does that mean down the road?
that means you can still bring it up at another meeting.
Okay, and if we vote to rescind it tonight, what does that mean down the road?
That
It
means they
has-
have to, they
It
have to
has
bring
to
us
go,
a new article.
So, okay, all right.
if
I'm
we
sorry,
don't vote
Terry.
it, if we don't vote it this May, we have to vote it at a special town meeting. We are
Okay.
obligated to have it on our warrant.
Yeah,
Oh, oh, oh.
but the subsequent, but that could include modified language, it include the implications financially, it could include more accurate and reviewed information at that point, right? At the special meeting?
But Terry, if we vote to pass over it, does that mean we have to vote it at a special meeting or that we can just wait till the next year?
Yeah,
I think every town has to vote on it.
wow,
Every
they
town.
really put the towns in a pickle bringing.
I
it-
mean, the other possibility is we could vote to reject it at town meeting, in which case they would have to wait to bring it up another year, right?
That's correct.
So all I'm saying is that town meeting gives you more options.
So Andrew, this is Debbie Andrew. I just want to be clear. We can pass over a town meeting or we can reject it at town meeting. Is that correct?
That's right.
And from my perspective, having listened to all of this conversation, what seems to me would be quite powerful to do this at town meeting because more people would be involved in this process and would have the opportunity to see that, in fact, we've been given a very complex proposal without a great deal of supporting documentation and information in a very short period of time. And I would suggest we reject it. That and I mean, I can't tell other people what to do, but that's kind of where I'm sitting right now.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming out too. My other thought is that it also gives the school district 2 weeks to almost 2 weeks to present compelling information. I mean, as to why they brought this forward this year and why we should be voting in the affirmative. Margaret.
Andrew, yeah, I'm wrestling with this. Terry, is there any way we could find out, we could express in some kind of just a blanket email to other town administrators or finance committees and ask them where they're at on it, and ask to get back within 24 hours or something? Because whatever information the school gives us between now and town meeting, they will say is adequate for us to receive it and accept. They're not going to say, oh gosh, we did send it too late. What can we do to help? I really don't think that's going to be their response.
Well,
And-
Margaret, we did ask them very clearly at their school budget presentation that we wanted impact information so we could better understand these articles.
I know we did, but we haven't got it.
Right.
And that's the point. We don't really know. And that unknowing, if the other towns share that, I think it would be powerful if several of the towns, if not all of them, had a similar reaction to ours. Because I can't find a nice way to explain it or express it, but to me, it's kind of unconscionable to put this kind of pressure on a town. And I don't know what the factors were that got it delayed so long, whether they just got so into this change that it took a lot longer than they thought. And I feel bad about that. But I think it's our responsibility, our due diligence to understand something really fully and have our own concept of the impact Not just say, oh, okay, that's the impact it will have. So I'm really moving toward wanting to, I mean, I think a second choice, a possible choice would be to, what was the term you used, pass over it? Just knowing that we would be willing to come back to it in the next year at a special town meeting. And if we don't, after seeing what the other towns think, I think that's the least we should do. And I think we should consider.
Yeah, well, it sounds like we're in agreement to leave it here for, leave it on the warrant. And we can explore the options at town meeting with the voters. And, if passing over it means we have to take it up at a special, then the voters should know that. And if rejecting it means we wouldn't consider it for a year, they would know that. And if accepting it would be contingent on the superintendent coming to the town meeting and persuading the voters of Shelburne that this was a compelling, issue that we should pass today, That's what I see the options for town meeting. And I agree with Debbie. I think that giving the voters all three choices is a good thing.
I take issue with that.
Yeah.
I mean, people are going to come to town meeting. Are they going to get this and the redlined version?
There's 14 pages.
I don't
here.
have the money to make that many copies of this many pages.
Well, I
I'm
mean,
just saying, Margaret, if it goes to town
Andrew,
meeting,
could I finish?
sorry, go ahead.
I'm trying to think through some things. If they don't have the red line version, I know that it in itself doesn't have financial implications, but it's a very strong message about all the changes that were made at the 11th hour. And people come to town meeting, I think, unprepared to deal with that amount of information. And yet that's relevant to whether they pass it or not. I know it's not relevant financially, but it's relevant to see. That's what I meant at the very beginning of our meeting when I said I really hadn't had a chance to understand what that all meant, because the financial aspect and the organizational and administrative aspects are intertwined. So anyway, that's all I'm going to say, except I would like to hear where other people are at this point. So Finance Committee, do you have any other thoughts?
Margaret, I'm chairing the meeting. Thank you.
Sorry.
Andrew, she has a question, so.
I'm ready to acknowledge you. I just was acknowledging myself to respond to Margaret, if that's all right with you. And the only comment that I was trying to clarify there, Margaret, is that procedurally, if we go forward tonight with it on the warrant, we can make a motion at town meeting to pass over it. But if that motion, for whatever reason, is rejected by the voters, then the next motion would be to either adopt it or reject it. So the voters will have potentially all three options available to them.
The voters aren't likely to have enough information to make.
I'm not saying the voters have information. I'm talking about the procedure of going to town meeting with a warrant article.
But procedurally, including such an extensive provision with no real analysis at the last minute, if I'm a voter, which I am, I would show up and say, why did you even put this on here? We don't even know what you're talking about. Come back to us when you get your, what together, and we'll vote on it. But I agree with what Margaret said earlier, which is at minimum, it should be passed over. But it seems like the better answer, which I think what Margaret was going to before, was we should just rescind it.
Deborah Andrew?
Yes, Deborah.
I've changed my mind completely. And I think that the arguments being made strongly to encourage the select board to vote in this article are very strong and compelling. And I would encourage you to follow that advice.
Margaret, are you making a motion to rescind this article?
Let me make a motion, and then I have a question of the Finance Committee, if I may ask it.
Go ahead.
I move that we rescind. Is that Article
31, 2, 3.
Went- Yeah, okay, I went back to look at something else. 31 to 33. Is there, well, Andrew, you chair. I made the motion to rescind the article 31. to
Okay, the motion has been made. I will second it. Is there discussion?
I agree with the comment. I agree with all of the comments that have been made. And maybe it's just, I feel like somehow it should be the select board's decision about what to do at this point. And I really, we could have a special select board meeting before the 24th somehow. Because what's rolling around in my mind that I can't come to terms with is people come to a town meeting and some people will be upset that they weren't able to see the changes. And I think they should be able to see the changes just to get the gist of the huge number of changes that were made and how they didn't understand them and how we can't understand the impact until it's more fully known. And I feel as though it's unfair to lay this on people coming to a town meeting, wanting it to end before midnight. And even if it went on for that long, I don't think that voters could understand it. And I suspect that most of them would just out of fatigue say, okay, fine, whatever the select board says, we'll do. So sorry to babble, but I'm still wrestling with how to put it into words, why I feel this is unacceptable and what to do about it. At this point, I think I would, Terry, explain, like if we pass this motion to rescind it, where does that leave us?
That means we're required to bring it to a special town meeting.
Unless it fails by all the other towns and our weighted vote wouldn't matter. But I'd have to get clarification from the school district on that. I've just heard from Ashfield, they are putting it on their warrant. I know that Buckland's putting it on theirs. And I don't know who has the weighted score, where those numbers come into play for each town. But I personally, in good conscience, couldn't recommend these articles. It's just too much at the 11th hour, and we don't know what the impact is.
We
And
seem to all be in agreement on that.
yeah.
Is there a comment from the finance committee?
I asked for a red line of these articles. And what I've received is not a red line of the articles. It's incomplete. It's absolutely misleading, and quite frankly, borders on fraud. Because it changes language which has nothing to do with the actual apportionment. And that in itself, to me, disqualifies this because it's being misrepresented as an article about apportionment, and that's not, in fact, the whole story. And so how we're going to depend upon, unless you're going to use your legal account, because I don't believe we have one. I can't go forward looking at this without having an attorney look at it to say, yes, it is a red line, and here are the changes. Because what we've got right now is not a red line. And I can't compare the two documents without it. Any further than I have already to find extreme cause for concern.
Is there other comments from the finance committee?
No, I think we're pretty good.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement. But
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess, Andrew, listening to what happens if we take one approach versus another, it sounds like if you guys decide to vote and to follow Margaret's motion, and you end up rejecting this, that it could require then a special town meeting, depending upon how other towns respond. Am I correct in that?
That's correct.
Boy, And I think, the idea for me, this is unconscionable that this has not been in the works for a long time. I can tell you that from following school committee meetings. And I feel that we're being pressured into a position that's really difficult to resolve in a sane and sensible manner. It's deeply concerning that it's occurred in this way, frankly, deeply concerning. And I wish I could offer more right now.
Any other comments from the Finance Committee?
No, I think the Finance Committee is good on this issue.
Okay. Well, I will just restate my position, which is that barring compelling evidence that's persuasive to me and 51% of the voters of Shelburne that this article should be passed at this town meeting, I will recommend to the voters that it be rejected, not passed over, but rejected. And that way it will not come back to us for another year. So I'm now going to bring this matter to a vote of the Select Board. All in favor of Margaret's motion, Margaret?
Andrew, I'd like you to say one more time what the, it sounded to me like what you said is you would rather not rescind it.
That's
And,
right.
yeah. And so what is, I'm trying to figure out what happens if tonight we each
The
have.
motion doesn't go forward. It's a
Yeah.
tie. We would have to then call another meeting and bring Bob into the picture to see if you can get 2 votes for it to rescind it.
Okay.
Andrew, may I ask Margaret a question?
Go ahead.
Margaret, Andrew has just made the statement that he, having listened to all of this, will recommend at town meeting that this, that these articles be rejected. And since he has said that, would you feel that that would resolve the issue for you?
Well, I said barring persuasive evidence to the contrary submitted by the school district.
I'm sorry, Andrew, I missed that caveat. Thank you.
Yes.
If I may take a point of personal privilege, years ago, we ran into some kinds of things of the Finance Committee and even the Select Board not approving, not wanting to approve something related to the school. And 2 things happened. First of all, everybody from the school showed up at some point to tell us we didn't care about kids. And the second thing was that all of the other towns just kind of folded. And Shelburne was left in many ways standing against what we thought is, and I was not a Select Board member then, but a close colleague of mine was. Anyway, I hear what you're saying, Andrew, but we're ready to vote now. I vote in favor of rescinding it.
Okay, Margaret is aye, Andrew is nay, and the motion does not go forward. So Terry, if there is, Margaret, if you have a strong interest in seeing this voted again with Bob present, we could schedule another meeting between now and Friday. Otherwise, it will stay on the warrant and we'll deal with it when we come to town meeting.
She made a motion to rescind, you seconded, so is that,
They voted.
okay.
And Andrew, there's no time to post a meeting for Friday.
Okay,
Today's Wednesday.
so we'll
So-
let it go to town meeting then.
What was the motion? What was seconded? And it was a 1-to-1 vote.
Go ahead, Margaret.
Yeah, I just, I think that's where we are and that's where we need to be. I would be interested in hearing what other towns are doing. Just curious to what their thinking is. But also, I think it does come across strongly if the Finance Committee speaks out against it when it comes to the floor. And I would
Mhm.
ask that you do that, even though it's not specifically financially.
I have no doubt that the finance committee will weigh in on this.
Well, I'm just encouraging.
No, we appreciate that, Margaret. We certainly will, and we, again, we certainly support the motion of having it rescinded from the,
To me, that makes the most sense at this point, but.
Yeah.
So we are at a tie. The motion, the warrant is complete at this point. Is there any further discussion on the warrant? Terry?
My only question is Article 28, having John Wheeler in on Monday won't do us much good. I can try to get some kind of a response from him via email tomorrow. It's my understanding that it was Donna's recommendation that that article go on there, but I don't know why.
And is there, are you saying there's no act, we either have to take action on it now or not at all, right?
Correct.
It's almost a non-financial. Wouldn't have recommendation.
So let me just read it aloud. To see if the town will vote to instruct the select board that it is the town meeting's preference that with respect to the sale of land obtained by via tax taking, such tax taking parcels located in RA, VR, VC, and C zones be sold for use as affordable housing units whenever reasonably feasible and in the best interest of the town. This in no way would limit the select board's authority under MGL or any other statutory authority with respect to the sale of land obtained by the town via tax taking or take any other action thereto.
Yeah.
So the first part is the advising of the town to the select board, and the second part is just clarifying that it's advisory, right?
I believe so.
is it common to have advisory articles on the town warrant?
Not really. Do you think?
No,
No.
seems kind of odd.
I guess since we don't have John's input on this or Donna's for that matter, I would vote to take it out. And just because the Article 29 is the substance of it.
Yeah, that seems to make sense.
Yeah,
And that, you know, I think that the planning board will have the opportunity in presenting Article 29 to basically explain to the voters what's in Article 28, to say basically the reason we're bringing this forward is to see if you all agree that we should, you know, whenever it's in the best interest of the town to use these non-conforming lots for affordable housing. And here's how we're laying it out in Article 29. What do you think, voters?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems I don't see what we're gaining out of Article 28. Terry, do you have any thoughts on that?
I agree. I feel like Article 29 is self-explanatory.
Margaret,
I agree too.
you want to make a motion to remove this article?
Sure, it's my night. I move that I make a motion that we remove Article 28 based on the thinking that Article 29 will answer that question proposed in
I will
Article.
second that motion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll bring it to a vote. All in favor, Margaret?
Aye.
Andrew's aye, and the motion carries. All right, we're one article shorter in our town meeting. And and I just want to say in conclusion that my pitch again in the school district articles is that barring any compelling evidence as to why we should pass these, if we vote to reject, that means they don't bring them back for another year. And that gives us a full year. And I think they should be voted by the voters at town meeting, not at a special town meeting, where the turnout is even likely to be even smaller. And I think you should have, on articles that affect the entire school district, you should have the opportunity for the entire town to show up and vote.
Mhm. Yeah.
Terry, do we have anything more on the warrant articles?
No. But now that you say that, I think every town would have to pass this language in order for it to pass. Every district town. It's not like a budget where it's a weighted vote.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
And
go ahead,
And-
Debbie.
thank you. I was struck by Margaret's recalling of an event I recall where having a lot of people at a town meeting on a school budget issue was plotted in such a way to make sure that it passed. And it was a very disturbing evening for me. I sat there saying, I don't know if I want to live here in this town. And I hope that doesn't happen again. And I'm disturbed that that the school committee and the superintendent felt it was appropriate to submit such a lengthy treatise to be considered without ever having planned ahead to have an informational meeting. It smacks of all the last minute things that have been going on for months. So I hope we can respond to this appropriately at town meeting.
Well, it seems like we're all pretty much on the same page here at this point. So I don't expect that we will have a lot of different opinions, but that's one of the beauties of small town democracy is you get to offer people a chance to share their opinions.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, if there's no further discussion on the warrant articles, I guess we'll conclude that portion of our meeting. And is there any other business?
I do have one request from resident Jim Bomer. He would like to hold an Earth Day trash collection in town on Saturday. And then any trash collected, he wondered if he could leave in a pile at the end of Baker Avenue for the highway personnel to pick up.
Has Mark been informed of this request?
He has been informed of the request and suggested that I bring it before the board. And I told Jim it could only be household trash. It couldn't be mattresses and tires because the transfer station does not collect that.
So he wants to have the highway department pick it up and take it to the transfer station?
Yes,
Okay. And has Mark indicated willingness to do that?
I think he's just waiting to be instructed if the board thinks it's a good idea.
I don't have an objection if Jim wants to do a general trash pickup. Margaret?
I'm all about Earth Day and the whole issue, but just having read today, I can't remember if it was today or yesterday's reporter about problems that people have had who've, particularly in Greenfield or Deerfield rather, announcing a special trash pickup. This is a big simplification of the article. And people from all over came, not from the town, to dump trash there. And I
Dump trash in town on the pickup day?
No, there was, to come to their transfers, it's very complicated, having to do with stickers and all. But people who were not supposed to bring trash brought it. They found a way around it. And I just have a vision of there being other people, but maybe it's short enough notice that the word wouldn't get around. So I don't know what to think
Oh,
about.
people would use this as an opportunity to bring their trash without paying a sticker fee for it?
Yeah.
That's, that seems very underhanded there.
Well,
Huh.
welcome
Save
to my
$2 there
curiosity.
to really piss off the town.
I think it's not very nice too, but it happened. And I don't know if that should be a factor in such a short-term thing. But I just,
Well, I guess my own feeling, Margaret, is to err on the side of goodwill, and if our goodwill is abused, then we would be the wiser the next time around.
I wish there were 3 of us here tonight. So
Andrew,
Yeah.
in listening to all of this, and understanding your perspective on wanting to support, the goodwill behind this, as I started to envision it, and I began to wonder, the question I asked myself is, do we really have that much trash that's not already handled by residents in an appropriate way? That's not my observation. And while I appreciate Jim's desire to honor Earth Day and do something that he feels would be a contribution, I honestly, I would, if I were sitting on the select board, I'd be very hesitant to go forward with this.
Well, thanks for that comment. Margaret, do you have further thoughts on this?
my only thought is I do care about the climate and I do care about all the waste we produce. But I don't feel like this is a way that I think is a good way, just by taking your trash somewhere else, to support the concepts behind Earth Day. So I would not be inclined to vote in favor of it. You'll have to own all the goodwill for the night.
All right. Well, do you want to bring it as a motion and we can split our votes on it?
You could bring it as a motion and then I would have just.
All right, I'll move that we grant Jim permission to do a town trash pickup day on Saturday. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, we'll bring it to a vote. All in favor, Margaret?
No.
Andrew is aye, and the motion does not carry. All right, so we have addressed that issue. Terry, do you have other business?
No, that's it. I will have the signature page for the warrant prepared by the end of the week so that it can be posted early Monday.
Okay. And just as a question for you, you mentioned in an email to me that it sounded like the pavilion project was not going to get completed before the end of the school year.
That's correct.
I'm wondering, I share your disappointment in hearing that, but you know, it is what it is. And that's one of the risks of having student projects, I guess. So I will own the responsibility for having initiated that.
Well, it was everything from the contractor getting COVID to the March snowstorm and the delay in the building permit.
I
So
guess my request to Mike Nobriga, the carpentry instructor, is if that is the case and they're going to have to come back in the fall to finish, it would be really nice if they could leave it at the end of their school year in a usable condition so that we could bring the picnic tables back to that area and people could use the space in the summertime.
the only piece that he does not believe will be completed is the metal roof. That's what they'll have to come back and do in the fall.
And probably the finish work, I'm guessing, of the dressing of the posts and all that, yeah. But if it's a structure that's sound and the, you know, even if it doesn't keep the rain out, if we can put the picnic tables back, then we'll at least have use of the site during the summertime.
Mhm.
Margaret,
I just wonder if we could put some kind of a tent or nice looking tarp over it, because shade is a big deal and we won't have trees.
yeah, I think that would be a great thing to do, just as an interim. I mean, lots of people put blue tarp on their roofs while they're fixing them, so, you know, I think that could be fine.
Okay, that's an issue for another time, but
Yeah, well, we can talk about it more on Monday, but I would just hope that we can have a usable site in the summertime. Good, all right, well, if there's no further business tonight, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
All right, I will second. Is there any, hearing no discussion, we'll bring it to a vote. All in favor, Margaret?
Aye.
Andrew's aye, and we are adjourned. Thank you, Finance Committee. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
And
you.
we will be back on Monday.